Hey there, welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm talking to Scott Grates. Scott is an entrepreneur, author, and host of the Referrals Done Right podcast, and he's built an incredible business by focusing on something we don't talk about enough: real relationships. We talk about his journey after losing his job during the 2008 financial crisis, the early years of building a business without a paycheck, and the mindset it takes to stay consistent when the results aren't immediate. I love this conversation with Scott, and as you'll hear throughout, I feel like we could have talked a lot longer. I had to cut us off at the end, but it's a really thoughtful conversation about entrepreneurship, relationships, and playing the long game. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Scott Grates. Welcome to Scale with Clarity, the podcast for entrepreneurs who are building a business and a life that actually feels good. I'm Brooke, fractional CFO, strategist, and mom of three, and I've learned that scaling isn't just about hitting revenue milestones. It's about finding alignment between your big vision and your everyday reality. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations with founders who are redefining success on their own terms. We'll talk about the pivots, the aha moments, and the tough decisions behind the scenes, plus the surprising ways entrepreneurship becomes the greatest personal growth journey of all. Whether you're dreaming of leaving corporate, navigating the messy middle, or trying to grow without burning out, this show is here to help you scale with more clarity, confidence, and ease. Because building a business should expand you, not deplete you. Let's scale with clarity together. Great. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Brooke. I'm truly excited about this one.
We were just talking before I hit record about, I'm just to tell the listeners, Scott also has a podcast. And so I was saying it's a very different vibe. Like you're hosting and then I'm going to be on his in, I don't know, it's a couple weeks too. And I'm like, oh, you're put on the hot seat a little bit. So thank you for flipping it around and coming onto mine.
Well, let's see who does better. Challenge the audience, listen to both of them.
Really good plug. Okay. After this, go to Referrals Done Right. Right? Is that your podcast name?
That's right.
Yeah. So after this airs, go to Scott's and see, which one interviewed.
We're both married with businesses and 3 kids, so you can't hurt us, right? You come at us however you want. You can't hurt us.
Thick skin at this point. Will you introduce yourself? So we already talked about you have a podcast, but we just give a little bit about what you're.
Yeah, it's probably the hardest thing for me to do is to introduce myself.
It's a leading question because that is where I was going with this, actually. So let's see how you do it.
Yeah, so I didn't set out to build a relationship-based business. I started this like a lot of stories in that I had to. I lost my job. I was part of the 2008 financial crisis meltdown.
I was in the financial industry then too. Same.
Okay.
Yes.
I was with HSBC, and HSBC got rid of 6,500 jobs in the mortgage department where I was in 2008. And we had 2 babies at the time. And my wife was a school teacher. And I'm like, now what? And we were at dinner with some friends, and one of our friends was working for a nationwide agent. She's like, let's just open our own insurance agency. And we were having drinks, so it made sense. And
I was going to say, was there fear? But I guess not. If a couple drinks in, right?
The next day I woke up and I'm like, that's actually not a bad idea. Now, I didn't end up opening one with her, but I started calling around to different insurance companies to find out what the opportunity was, because I was fascinated with residual income. I had been in sales my whole life, but it was always one and done sales. Like take care of your mortgage, and then when's the next time you're going to get your mortgage, right? Yeah. And so I love the idea of residual income and building the relationships. What I didn't love is the part we're probably going to dive deep into today, was that transition where I didn't take a paycheck for 2.5 years. True rice and beans. We were talking about cars pre-recording. I had an old Honda Civic where you rolled down the windows. I think it was the last Civic ever made where there were power windows. I had no air conditioning, and we didn't take a vacation. And so today when people say it must be nice, it's one of my biggest pet peeves, because I'm like, yeah, it's great. You do it. And go through the initial stages because there's a fundamental difference, and this, about signing the front of a paycheck versus the back of a paycheck. Yep. In my whole life, I was signing the back and doing very well. But when I switched to being the hardest working person on my team and paying everyone except myself, that sounds good on a business plan. But when you're doing it in the trenches for months and then over a year and then 2 years, there's a lot of self-doubt that pops up. Right?
Well, through that self-doubt, did you ever think about going back? Was it enough to be like, Tell me that.
I love that question. And, I remember distinctly when I was building the business plan and I did a whole lot of research and I was talking to friends, mentors, people in the industry that didn't even know me. And everyone was very gracious. I find that collaboration, happens at the top, competition happens at the bottom. So people in my space who I was going to be competitors with who didn't know me, they probably didn't think I was going to make it, but they opened their doors and just answered all my questions. But anyway, I had a friend that asked me that question. He goes, Scott, what's going to happen if this doesn't work out? And Brooke, it really like confused me because I'd
Yeah.
never thought about it.
No.
Really hadn't. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have a plan B. Like this is it. Like I talk about Cortez and burning the boats a
Yeah.
lot. We were going to get to the island, burn the boats, and we were going to win or die on that
Yeah.
island. We weren't going to retreat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's interesting you say that too, because I think about that a lot. And that's where I eventually get to. But thank you for jumping there. Is like, there's good and bad about entrepreneurship. And I think about when I first left my job, I had my husband still has his corporate job. So I was a little bit like he was the safe bond and I was the risky stock. So a little bit of a different situation too. But I always thought, push come to shove, I can go back. And that's what I tell people, like there's not this, oh, you have this gap in your resume type of thing anymore. But the thing that happened, and it's so interesting too, because to your point, it's stressful and there is not a set paycheck and you're doing skill sets that you've never had to develop before that you didn't think you'd have to lean into. And you learn more about yourself than you ever thought you would. But I got to a point where I was like, I can't imagine going back. And so even with all that stress, that was the sign for me that like, I was clearly in misalignment, and whether it takes a certain brain set that you're just always going to be entrepreneurial or not, I don't know, but I'm like, I can't go back. And that was the point where I was like, I got to figure this out. Like good, bad, wherever it leads me, like this is my path from now on.
I love that. And I want to go back to you referring to your husband as a safe bond. I don't think there's anything less romantic a wife could say about their husband. So I hope
And you
he
know what's
listens to
interesting
that.
too? Because now in the whole corporate environment, what I tell a lot of people, I'm like, corporate isn't a safe bond anymore either. Like you're not, like people are getting
Way
like,
riskier.
yeah. And that's actually the mindset shift. It's funny because now I'm like, I should dial that back a lot too. But at the time I was like, okay, he has the benefits. He has the job that's going to give him the paycheck. I can take, make a ton of more money potentially, but also make zero. Now I'm like, that's not the case either. Like you are basically everyone in my mind that is even in a corporate job. I always say you should look at your W-2 job as your first, maybe your only client, because it could go away. It could, like build your personal brand as you do, like think about delivering it, think about the problem that you're solving for them. And like that just gets you in that mindset too. So I think everyone should be thinking that way now too, because
I
you're right.
love that, and I say all the time that I am absolutely positively unemployable at this stage in my life. I was at the gym talking to a guy the other day, and he's a school teacher, and we're in central New York. We've gotten a lot of snow this year. And so we had the kids had a snow
To
day. So,
2026.
so someone said to them, said to him, "Oh, snow day." He goes, "Actually, I'm on paternity leave." He goes, but I still like snow days because that's an extra day they give me a paternity leave. And I physically felt different in my stomach hearing about PTO
Yeah.
and snow days
Yeah.
and asking for days off. And I'm like, I do a lot of reflection. I do a lot of gratitude. And it truly was a moment of gratitude internally for me that like, hey, like it, I have total freedom, not total, but pretty close
Yeah.
to total
Yeah.
freedom of time. And, look, it takes a minute to get there, but I'm so glad we went through those tough times.
Well, and I think too, I'm reading a new book that just came out. It's by Brad Stolberg. It's called like The Pursuit of Excellence. But he talks about the three things that everyone needs to really feel like great. And one of them is autonomy. And that doesn't mean you need to be an entrepreneur. But I think the thing that can do is you are busy by all accounts, but you can create the business around how it works, how you want it to, like if you need to structure in the mornings for the kids. And I think that flexibility, first of all, it takes knowing yourself, which not everyone does. And I didn't for a while. It takes this real introspection, but then it does allow that. So same, when I hear PTO, it's like I'm within the confines of what someone else is telling me I can do. And it just feels too restrictive now at this point.
I know it's gotten a lot of buzz of late, but years ago I fell in love with the shift from work-life balance to work-life integration.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really what you're talking
Yeah.
about is, this was, let's backtrack. When I started my first business, this was a family decision. And I think a lot of people miss that, right? They kind of jump into it solo and not realizing the pain and suffering this is going to cause
Yeah.
your family. And you've got to be all in it together, because the emotional roller coaster and the long nights and missing things early, they've got to be on board. And so, um, yeah, the work life integration, we are a team. We're team greats, and that's how we run family meetings. Like I run corporate meetings, and we do reflection time, and we do planning together, and
I love that.
they're part of the brand,
Yeah.
like it or not. They've been on billboards with me, and they're part of my social media mix, because everyone loves kids, right?
Yes.
And my kids are great in pictures and when they sleep. Like that's when they're at their peak. So
They really excel. They really exceed your expectations during those 2 times. No, I love that too, because I think the thing that was I left when my kids were I don't know, my oldest was in elementary school still, and my youngest was 2, and so but I think about the things that they've learned from me. I used to think I had a real ego about my title and my job, and was really cool to tell them, I'm really busy and I'm in all these meetings, but they didn't see it. I was going into an office, like, it was just really it was ego driven, but now they actually see it, and they're on my they're on my payroll too, because I have them helping social media and, like, little things, but they're learning from that too. They can reconcile QuickBooks for me because they know how to do Excel just as well. So it's fun getting them involved, and they can see, because the other thing they're learning is that it's easier said than done. You hear it all the time, like there's no failure or whatever, but they really see that everything is a learning, like in terms of like, oh, that pricing didn't work, or that client or whatever. You're learning what's working in the market. What do you like doing? And so school can be a box where they have to learn specific things, but there's a test that you get it right or wrong. And this is real nuanced and different way, I think, of learning. So I love incorporating that. And that was something I never thought leaving that would be a benefit.
Yeah, same. And we're going in a totally different direction than scaling a business. But I love this because it's kind of like scaling our family. And there's been so many life lessons, so many parental lessons I've been able to provide because I jumped into entrepreneurship, and then share with them. And my kids are a little bit older. I've got 2 in college, but neither of them have any interest in my business, which I love, and so I didn't want to push them, but I wanted to share with them. And then you mentioned failure, right? Such a buzzword, but we talk about failing forward, and failure is feedback. And I was just having this conversation with a buddy. I said the hardest thing for me as a parent is allowing my kids to go into situations where I know they're going to fail.
Yeah.
Like nothing harmful, right? But just, and my wife and I talk about this a lot. Like, are we enabling them? Like, should we not have bailed them out or told them
Yeah.
this? Because
Yeah.
we need to let them touch the stove and feel that heat. Be like, "Ooh, that's hot. Don't do
Yeah.
that."
Yeah.
Um, you know, I grew up. I don't know what the term for the parents are, like helicopter, latchkey, whatever. But my parents were never around. I was
Yeah.
that generation
Yeah.
where I was self raised from
Yep.
like 10.
Yep.
So we had no choice but to figure it out. And I think my wife, and she was the same way. My wife and I overcompensate because we want to be the parents our parents weren't. And then we do too much,
Yeah. I
right? So
I agree. And I think I'm a little bit in between, because I think I saw myself shy away from taking the risks because of failure. I was let's get the great, grade, let's get the next degree, let's get the certification, kind of like that external validation of success or of doing the right thing. And I saw that catch up to me, because if you're not taking like, I actually made it a goal to get more no's than yeses this year. So ask for things that I think, like, and because it feels like, oh, I've asked too much, like just one of those things. But I'm like, that's a sign. If I can flip it in my head, that's a good, because it's actually my goal. That means I'm like pushing myself in a positive way. So I've seen it in myself, and I'm like, I don't want my kids to fall into that same bucket. But at the same time, it is so hard. You're right. Because like I see, and like, you're like, are they going to go down the completely wrong path though with this like mistake, this quote mistake? So
yeah, because we're there for guardrails,
yeah.
right, and guidance. But you mentioned 2 things. I jotted them down as you were going. There's a great book that we use in the sales world called "Go for No."
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this mindset flip, just what you're doing, where we're in a world of rejection in sales. Like we meet with 10 people, 8 tell us no. So instead of counting the 2 yeses and being upset about the 8 no's, go for no.
Yeah.
Right. And then get excited about those. And then the second thing I thought of when you were talking was, and this is hard for entrepreneurs, but you have to detach from the outcome. right? So everything that we do
It's like you're
is
talking in my 2026 goals. It's
is
like I
is
should have talked to you at the
maniacally.
end of last year.
Well, I didn't know that when we were in our 20s. So, but yeah, just being maniacally focused on today. And what I talk a lot in entrepreneurship about the fog and the lighthouse. So when you open up your business on day one, it is so foggy that you can't see 2 feet in front of you. And what do most entrepreneurs do? Walk or run
Yeah.
into the
Yep.
fog, and they're lost and they're confused and
Yep.
disoriented and they don't know where to go next. They're lost, right? What you need to do is focus your time on building the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And so, what does that mean? When I opened my first business, it was December 1st, 2009. And I sat in the parking lot staring at my new office building with my name on the side of it. And I had imposter syndrome like never before, fear, anxiety, all the things, right? Like how I had 2 employees that were counting on me for payroll. I had 0 customers. I had 2 babies at home. And I'm like, what in the hell have you done? Right. And what finally calmed me, and I realized that the only thing that mattered, because what I was doing, I was focused on the outcome, but not just the outcome. Like I was focused on like what I had to do for the year. And all those goals are huge. That's the boulder,
Yes. Yes.
right? And that we can't push it all at once. So I just became really focused on what 2 or 3 actions or activities can I do today, December 1st, 2009, to earn the right to come back and fight again December 2nd, 2009. And now 17 years later, when I tell that story, because we've accomplished quite a few
Yeah.
things, we've got like over 13,000 customers that we've grown, and like 25% of my community we do business with, which is crazy small community.
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
great.
and people ask the question, they're like, well, how'd you do it? Right. And everyone wants this like magic answer. And I'm like, just win the day. Just focus on 1 or 2 things every day that you can control, not the outcomes. You can't control the outcome. Actions and activities. And no one likes that, but it's the take the stairs approach, right?
I need to, I literally, so this notebook here that for those that actually watch this, I have this quote that I just posted. It was like 3 days ago about this because I came across it and it says, basically to the extent commit to the process without being emotionally attached to the results because you can't control the results, but the law of averages will play out over time if you stay consistent. And that's exactly what I've been telling myself because I'm like, you get attached to this full year. And I do this with finance too, right? You got to set your 12-month goals and you look at your results, but so many entrepreneurs, I don't know why it's this period of time, whether it's seasonality or just with this year, it just seems to be sales have lagged for a lot and we're feeling it. I think the weather too, just everyone is feeling it. And it's like, if we can go down and be like, what are those 4 things that we know we just need to just get through until the mindset comes back, until the sales come back, you just know. And I love that to your point is like, what will earn me the right to come back tomorrow? It's like, come back to that.
This is the Stockdale paradox, where the real long story short, Admiral James Stockdale was the longest POW in American history. I'll botch it, but it was something ridiculous, like 7 or 8 years he was held captive in Vietnam. They call it the Hanoi Hilton. And the point to the story is he watched so many of his comrades die in captivity, because what they did is they said, if I can just make it to Christmas, if I'm released by my kid's birthday, if I'm released by my wedding anniversary, and those days would come and go, and it would crush their souls. They would give up hope. And Stockdale said, if I can just wake up tomorrow,
Yep.
I've earned the right to fight another day. And that's
Yeah.
where I got that from, by the way.
Yeah.
So, that idea that, and it sounds negative and it's not meant to be, but when you have too much hope on future based outcomes, like it's easy to get crushed. But if your goals are super short and you
Well,
narrow your focus,
I agree. And I think the thing on top of that comes up to me is everyone talks, it's not about the destination, it's the journey, which truly is right. There's no end point, we're like, whatever the end point is death. Right. And
and
so, but when you can bring it down to the day, what that really makes you come is not just the shorter goals to your point, but am I finding joy in the actual activities that it takes to get to whatever I've set my goal is? Like, if you don't find like the people that you're meeting, or for me, it's these conversations I'm having, or, like what the actual activities that your job requires, the ultimate goal of getting that sale, that's a fleeting feeling once you eventually get there. So I think it really brings you down to like, am I enjoying the act of what I'm doing?
fall in love with the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
and all these things sound so cliche, but what is your passion? And chase that. And that's the beauty of what we do as entrepreneurs. Like, most of us left a job because there were many aspects of that job that we just didn't like.
Yep.
They didn't align with our values
Yep.
and who we were, right? And even now, as an entrepreneur, I tell people, like, yeah, insurance agent is what I do, but that's not who I am. And everything that I chase outside of this world, with podcasting and writing books and speaking and pouring into the younger generation. I love teaching kids. That's my passion. That's what lights me up. But the agency allows me time and financial freedom to go do all this other stuff, which is awesome.
Can you dig into that a little bit? Because I
Yeah,
think that's a thing. So when we're in our corporate job, and I love your story too, and that was my leading question when I first asked you to introduce yourself, because I think we're used to kind of introducing ourselves by one aspect. Here's my title and my job. And actually maybe holding ourselves to that where we don't follow our passions because the job takes everything. As you go out on your own and you expand a natural entrepreneurial mindset, you have lots of ideas. What's your take on, do you need to focus on one thing and try to like get that good and then like expand into your hobbies? Because you have quite a few different things that you're doing. Or is that naturally like that allows you to be more holistically you?
that's such a tough question. It's
I
a
know.
great question, but I don't even know if it has an answer. So I live by many mantras, and one of them is, if you have diluted focus, you have diluted results.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that you should paint yourself into a corner with one thing, but I do think you can do multiple things under a one word problem that you solve. And that one word problem, that I try my best to help those that I coach solve, is consistency. Because so many people, and this from the coaching space, say, well, Brooke, I've tried that. No, I've done that. That
Yeah.
didn't work for me. Right.
Yep.
And then the follow up is,
Yes.
what, for how
For how,
long?
yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then how did you, change course
Yes.
when things didn't go the way you wanted to? Did you, they just quit? Right. And I'll talk about that part. I think brand identity was really tough for me.
Yeah.
This is why I'm struggling with an answer, because I really got to a point a few years back where I'm like, Scott, who are
Yeah.
you? Like, you own insurance agencies, you own a coaching consulting company, you like to write, you like to speak, you like to coach, you like, but who am I? And finally, well, first of all, I hired a coach, which I believe everyone
Everyone needs a
everyone
coach.
needs a coach. I now have multiple coaches
Yes.
and an executive assistant, and like, just like, I know how to do like two things in my life, and everyone else just keeps me on the
I like to
rails.
say I'm good at telling others what they need to do, but I need help myself with all the same things. Like I can't
You
see it
talk,
in myself.
one thing I love, about your platform is the Scale with Clarity is such a great name for a podcast and just what you do. Because it didn't start this way. It started with me, being in the trenches. I started with two employees, one full-time, one part-time. And it's grown into what we have now. And so people go, yeah, it's easy for you. You've got assistants and team leaders and, people that do this. And like, I outsource like almost everything in my life, but that was by design.
Yeah.
Like, that's strategic,
Yeah.
So anyway, to get back to the hiring the coach. So I'm working with Ben, and, we're working on brand identity and who I am. And he says, Scott, everything that we've talked about, he goes, it ultimately just comes back to relationships. He goes, when I think Scott Grates, I think you're a relationship guy. You're a connector, like, and it hit me that, yeah, I'm doing all these things. And instead of saying I'm this or I'm this or I'm that, like, I'm a relationship person,
I like that.
right?
I
I
love that.
connect people. I love rich, meaningful conversations. I love the fact that I met you through a
I
rich
agree.
relationship
Yeah.
that I have. And, so yeah, to answer your question, I think you can be many things, but still be one thing.
Yeah. I love your idea about the through line because I think that takes a lot of us. I mean, it takes trial and error, honestly, to figure out yourself and allow yourself. We go back to the failures, no failure, you're learning. So it's taking a while to learn your through line. I also think though, the thing that you mentioned around getting really good at what you're doing, I think everything we do, and that's why I'm such a big values person, because I think it should be, there's a purpose to it, right? Because it's adding connection, it's bringing in revenue to your family for security, it's whatever that may be. And I think if you don't know the why of what you're doing it, you can often chase shiny object syndrome, but never actually get to what you're doing. So I think you, like you said, starting a business could have been security for your family. It could have also been because you like the connection, whatever it may be, but you got to a point where that was stable, you could offload it, and then it's time to maybe pursue other values. So I think it's both. And
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can have multiple goals, but just one at a time.
yeah. Yeah.
And one leads to another, and then you're going to get to a point, audience that are just starting out, where you have too many opportunities, and that's a whole nother situation. That's what I've been working on. Like my word for 2026 is simplicity.
Mm.
And I reflected on 25. I'm like, you didn't honor the time blocks you created. You said yes to way too much. You bumped things that you said were important, and then you audibled. And so this year it's all about simplicity and saying no more than I say yes.
What are your parameters for saying no, out of curiosity? Like, do you have set goal? You're like, I need time with my family. So if it bumps into that, like, do you have a prioritization in your own mind of like,
You
yeah,
and so the biggest thing, and this is so easy and everyone knows this, but we don't always do it, is I time block,
mm-hmm.
and I've always time blocked, but I never honored it.
Yeah,
And
same. I'm same. I'm
so
right in there
I'll
with you.
give you a perfect example. I know I'm not alone here. But I had 7:30 to 8:30 as the perfect window, 1 hour every day for just movement, exercise, like just get my body in motion, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that looks like. And that was the one block that I'd always be like, oh yeah, I could take a call at
Yep.
8, bro, no
Yep.
problem, right? And
Yep.
I'd kick. And then I got to the end of the year, and I'm like, dude, you're 20 pounds overweight. Like you're
Unhappy. Yeah.
going towards 50, and looking
Yeah.
at, I want to walk my daughter down the aisle. I want to meet my
Yes.
grandkids. Like, what
Yes.
am I doing? And so I prioritized health and fitness. I read a great book by Robin Sharma called the
I love
Everyday
him.
Manifesto.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in there, he talks about twice a week massages. And I'm like, oh, that's great in a book, but who the hell can do that? And then I'm like, well, I'm not there yet, but I hired for the Fridays, I block all of Friday, and it's
I
my
love
health
that.
and wellness day,
That's so cool.
non-negotiable. Don't put anything in this place. And I get a haircut at 8 a.m. I go into a sauna at 9:30. I've hired a masseuse at 10. And I meet with I do deep thinking for 2 hours after that. No digital
That's,
detox, right? No phone, no
yeah,
laptop, just pen and paper. Sometimes it's just silence. Sometimes it's writing.
so good.
And then I meet with my coach at 2 o'clock every Friday, and we go deep into some stuff. So Friday is just my rejuvenation, health and wellness day. But then during the week, this kind of goes another book, the 12 week year by Brian Moran. He talks about shrinking your goals. And so I've shrunk my days because I won't do anything past 5. So you ask about family, like that's family time, non-negotiable. And I do the workouts in the morning. So I have about 25 hours Monday through Thursday to fit everything in. And, there's podcast blocks. Like this is a very specific block of time that there's
I
2 hours.
appreciate you fitting this in.
No, yeah, I didn't carve it. It fit with
It
what
was
my,
previously blocked. Okay, good.
yeah. So you actually probably worked around me, which is awesome. And that's what I find, by the way,
Yeah.
Brooke. It's like people, if it's important, they'll figure out how to make it work around what you have available. And it became very easy for me to say no when I looked at my calendar. I'm like, I honestly don't have any time.
And it's not personal, actually. It's just,
No.
I don't have, like, I can't create more time. And there isn't that. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Okay. Before we end too, because I know, God, I know the time can go. I really want to focus or ask you referrals. I mean, your whole, your book and your podcast and everything about that. And I think what's so important, I want to make sure our listeners hear from you is, especially for the person that is starting off and your confidence isn't right. So we've talked a little bit about like, you got all these ideas. You talked really, I love the metaphor, which is not a good one, but you first start out and everything's muddy. Like that's true. Like it's just you're not sure, you're running fast towards stuff, but I won't say might. Most people don't have that confidence either. If like you're going out and selling, which you've maybe never had to sell before, talk to that person. And like, what are some things you can do? Either fake the confidence, either ground yourself in what you really know, build the relationships. Like where do they go from there if they're just starting out?
Don't fake it. I hate the phrase "fake it till you make it." I think it's such BS. I mean, I get it. I'm not coming at you there, Brooke, but you know
No,
what I mean.
I
I live
agree. I
there.
totally agree.
I'm mad at myself.
Authenticity is overused, but I am such a believer in that. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
you can see right through it. Yeah.
nobody believes me when I tell them this because we meet in settings like this, but I am a complete social introvert. I really am. Like, you put me with you, I'm comfortable with you. You put me in front of my team, I'm comfortable with my team. You put me in comfortable situations, I'm good. You put me at a chamber mixer, a networking event, like
Scott,
I'm the dude in a
we are the
the
same. Yes,
drink.
it's a very quick. Like I can create conversation with the best of them, and then it's a quick decline in
Oh,
energy.
it's
Like
just so
30 minutes in, I'm like, okay, I'm done.
so slimy, right? And
Yes.
weird and forced,
Yep.
and so here's my answer to so first of all, I talk about confidence being earned, not learned. Like, you can't learn to be confident. You got to do it. You got to earn it. And the best example is when you first learned to ride a bike. Like, you crashed and it hurt and it sucked and you didn't want to get back up, but you had a coach, probably a parent, right? Or a mentor, and said, "Hey, encourage you to get back on the bike." And then you went a little further and you crashed, and you didn't want to. And by the end of the summer, you're popping wheelies and you're no hands, and it's easy. So again, back to that being genuine, authentic, following your passion, your purpose. Here's the best thing that I can leave your audience with as far as scaling. And we use the word referrals on our marketing and on the book, but it's relationships. And the book should be Relationships Done Right, but
Yeah.
then it goes into a whole different section of the bookstore and it's weird, right? So it's all about relationships, but it starts with the servant's heart,
Yeah.
because the law of reciprocity says that if you continuously give to someone expecting absolutely nothing in return, eventually with consistency, that person's going to want to reciprocate,
Yeah.
right? Because they
Yeah.
like you, that,
Yeah.
know, like trust. And so I looked at my business and I said, I can go after all these potential customers, prospects, what have you. And I use the goose and the golden egg analogy. So those are the golden eggs. Those are the people I want to talk to. And I was doing that. I was spending a ton of money on marketing and advertising. And I used the David and Goliath story where, I don't have the budget to fight with these $1 billion
Yep. Yep.
corporations. They'll outspend me without.
Yep.
So what do I have? What's my secret weapon? Like David's sling. Well, I can get in the trenches and build relationships, but instead of going after the golden eggs, I want to go after the geese. And the goose that lays a golden egg every day, if I can become really good friends with that person and pour value into their life, then when they lay the golden egg, they'll be like, "Hey, go meet Scott."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that becomes how we exponentially grew this thing, the compounded results. And the process is consistency. Every 4 weeks we show up in an unexpected way at a unique time, and it doesn't always have to be in person. A lot of social media connections, handwritten cards, what was once old is new again, personalized gifts. But the questions when we speak, Brooke, are, tell me about your business.
Yeah.
What are your goals? What obstacles or challenges are you facing? How can I help? Who do I know that maybe I can introduce you to? We never ask for a thing. And now, after doing this for 15 plus years, right, we have over 1,000 for a decade straight, a thousand introductions that get made to our agency every single year. We do no marketing, no advertising, and we continue to grow. It takes time,
Yeah.
right? But it's so powerful to so the question is for your audience, who are the people that already know the people you want to do business with? So instead of going after the individuals, go after the geese.
I feel like I threw you a softball because it's going to come back to everything that I've said to, and I love
Thank
this
you.
answer because a couple things. One, I feel like with AI, people are craving real connection. And so everything you're saying, which has always been true, I feel like so much more today because you can't trust all the stuff that's online. I think people are really going back to in-person connection, to actually talking to someone, to knowing you. So exactly what you said. And then the second thing is you said just it's consistency. And that's what you said earlier is like, instead of the big goal of I've got to get my revenue to X amount of dollars, if it is, what are those weekly actions of reaching out that you've done, which is, and leading with what can I help you with, but just knowing every week I've got to do four of it, whatever it may be, whatever your process is. I love that. And so through consistency, it comes back. And I always say, for the people that I talk to that are leaving and they want to start this fractional practice and they're mostly service based, your first customers are going to be existing network. You minimize what the relationships you've already built, the brand that you've already built with these people that you've been doing stuff for 20 years and they've gone to broader things. And so that's going to be just to your point. And it's not, hey, I'm doing this. Can you have my service? But it's reaching out to those people, letting them know what you're doing and saying, how can I support you? So I love that answer.
Listen, relationships before revenue. And I know that's easy to say. And people are like, yeah, it's easy for you, Scott. Like, you've got revenue. But I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't make a penny for 2.5 years. And I was just maniacally focused on relationships, the right relationships. And, that's planting the seeds, right? We talk a lot about plant, cultivate, harvest. There's a natural order to everything in life. And so you've got to keep planting the seeds. But more importantly, you have to cultivate. Right. So in the corporate world, we kind of plant seeds and then we yell at it. Why aren't you growing? Right. But
Yes.
in our world, what we understand is you got to water it. You got to cultivate it. You got to show up, and so what we do is really just figure out what problems is Brooke having? How can I help? And in business, no matter what business you're in, the revenue will always follow and be equal to the size of the problems you can solve for people.
I love that.
And so be a problem solver, ask a lot of questions.
And it's like you said, you won't always see the results. And I think that's where you just need to stay consistent for, how long have you been doing this? It's not going to
That
be
is
3
faith.
weeks, right?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
hear think religious, but I talk to new entrepreneurs a lot about, doing the work and not seeing the results, but believing they'll come is
Yeah.
faith.
Yeah.
And you have to have faith.
And you never know when that pivot point, you can look back and be like, oh, of course, it was all those things, this person led me to this person. But when you're doing that, it doesn't feel, you can't see that cultivating, but you hear the metaphor all the time. It's like the roots growing under the ground until they prop up and that's what you're doing. So I love that you've lived that. And yeah, I know people can say, oh, it's easy for you, Scott, but just like you said, you've been there and you see the results and you work with others it's putting in the time to just develop those relationships and continue on. And it will, like, again, back to the law of averages. You keep doing the work, it will come back and pay. So,
It gets to a point, and I know we got to wrap up,
no,
but
yeah,
I love metaphors, but it's that snowball going down the hill.
yeah,
It starts so small, but now, and I don't want this to sound pompous, but our network is so robust. Like our phone rings in more than we don't prospect, right? We follow up, but we don't prospect. And so even if we wanted to stop people referring us, we couldn't. I mean, I guess we could if we were really bad or unethical or, but
there's a couple ways,
like,
things that
it
come to
gets to
mind.
a point where the snowball becomes so big and it's like investing, how do you become a multimillionaire? It's not hard. You just need time and you
Yeah,
have to be consistent.
yeah, yeah. Well, Scott, I feel like I know we said this before we hit record. I have 7 other things I'd love to talk to you about, but I know time flies. So yeah, we'll do a round 2 of this on just like once you're actually in business, now what do we need to do? Thank you for making the time. How do people find you? Where are you? I know we mentioned your podcast already, but
Yeah. My name is my domain. So scottgrates.com and, Referrals Done Right is the podcast and the newsletter. And that's the best way.
love it. I love it. And also give just like a little shout out to your other podcast too, which if you're in the local New York area, right?
Yeah.
Which I
So
love this too.
even if you're not, and again, we're out of time, but a big piece of, so how do you start a relationship? This is the number one question I get, right? Like that's great, but how do you start talking to these geese if you don't know them? And my answer is you interview them. And everyone's like, gives you a weird look, like, what? Like interview them. And so where we started was with a little blog, a weekly blog that we would go in and we said, hey, we want to shine a spotlight on you and your business. And I want to share it on social media with my audience. And we did a weekly blog where we put a spotlight on local community members. And then that evolved. Our area code in Central New York is 315. And so now my wife and I started the Love Living Local 315 podcast. And we've got over 30,000. We're in a tiny little area, but over 30,000 followers, and it's turned into a whole media network. But all we do is the good news and the people that normally don't get the spotlight. But then what happens? You're on the podcast. We interview you for 30 to 45 minutes. We get to know everything about you. And now you're in my CRM. and every 4 weeks, you're going to start hearing from me. Right. And so that's how we continue to build a network.
So I love that. But also the part that I love is you said you're an introvert, and every part of your business is making connections and networking. I just want to tell everyone that, like, if you're feeling like I can't do that, I've got to go into sales, like, you can do it in an authentic way that's authentic for you and really build the relationships that are real. Like you said, they're not just faking it. And so I love that you said you're kind of an introvert, but you're proof that, like, you can build this regardless of.
So social media, a lot of pros and cons, but one of the biggest pros is what we just talked about. So you and I are having a conversation one-on-one right now. And with the right audience, thousands of people can tune in. And so it's easier than ever for introverts to do what they love in their lane, and then just invite everyone else to kind of tag along through.
Yeah. And just kind of, I say it's like the horse blind on the sides. You don't really know, you're just putting out what you want to put out. And you're like, if people don't like it, they can opt out, and you don't even need to know that they opt, right? And the people that want to find you will come in and join you in your party. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll put all that in the show notes. And like I said, I could definitely do like a round 2 and 3 and 4 with you. So that's what's great about this and podcasting. People you meet.
Thank you, Brooke.
Hey there. If this episode sparks something for you, I'd really love to know. Shoot me an email or leave me a comment on the episode. Those messages really do mean more to me than you realize. And if you're craving more clarity in your business or your career, you can explore ways to work together at www.scalewithclarity.com. You guys, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to the episode. I always love recording these and sharing them with you, and looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Scale with Clarity.